Hello everyone. I hope you enjoyed a lovely bank holiday weekend over the Easter period, with time spent with family, friends, and perhaps a few Easter treats along the way. We've had a really positive start back this week. The Cowes Community Bowls Club kindly came to Millbrook House to present us with a fantastic cheque of over £1,500, which they raised through their fundraising efforts, and we are incredibly grateful for their support. We had the pleasure of visiting their community club just before the Easter break to share more about the work that we do at Site for Wight. And it was a great opportunity to connect with members. When they came to present the cheque, we were able to return the hospitality, enjoying some lovely cake and hot drinks together. If you've never tried bowls before, I would really encourage you give it a go. It's a welcoming and social activity, and it's a great way to stay active. The club has an open day next Sunday at their Green and Cows, so it's a perfect opportunity to pop along and see what it's all about. Really look forward to catching up with you more over the weeks ahead, but until then, take care, have a lovely weekend, and hope to see you all soon.
Here is this week's charity news for the 10th of April 2026.
The monthly Hearing Cafe is on Monday at Thompson's Garden Centre, Newport, between 10:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. Staff will be on hand to chat and answer questions. All very welcome.
Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
We wish everyone going to Warner's on Monday a lovely time. We hope the sun shines and everyone thoroughly enjoys it.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Mix and Mingle is on Thursday at Millbrook House. This group enjoys crafts, quizzes, and entertainment. If you would like to put your name down on the list, please call the office.
Tandem biking is now on a Tuesday along the Cowes cycle track. If you fancy a go on a tandem, please do not hesitate to call the office and we can arrange a suitable time.
On Friday evening, we have our pudding and quiz evening here at Millbrook House, starting at 7 p.m. The cost is £5 per person and is open to everyone. Please do not worry if you do not have a team of 4. We will make teams up on the evening. This is very popular and good fun. Come along and join us.
Our next Eye On social is on Wednesday the 22nd this month and will be meeting at the Crown Inn Shorewell for lunch. If you would like to join us, please call the office by Monday the 20th so we can confirm numbers with the pub.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Sandown councillors to stand for County Hall in bid to drive town forwards. 2 Sandown town councillors have announced their intention to stand for election at County Hall next month, the 7th of May, saying a change in representation is needed to help move the town forward. Paddy Lightfoot and Alex Lightfoot of Together for Sandown say they have long maintained they would not run for the Isle of Wight Council, but now feel it is the only way to continue their work locally. In a joint statement, the pair say they have the backing of fellow Together for Sandown councillors and local residents, adding that their focus will remain firmly on the town. Paddy Lightfoot and Alex Lightfoot, Together for Sandown councillors, have said, Together for Sandown has had a clear plan and agenda since last year's town council elections. The main opposition that we have consistently been coming up against is that of our own county councillors. Paddy and I spent many years saying that we'd never run for county council. Unfortunately, we find ourselves into the position where we feel that the only way to continue to help drive the town forwards is through a change in representation at county level. We're very happy to have the support of all the Together for Sandown councillors and so many residents, and we will continue to do the best that we can for Sandown. They say that, if elected, they will prioritise Sandown, while also working with councillors across political parties for the benefit of the wider Isle of Wight. The statement also challenges claims that planning restrictions are preventing development in Sandown, describing such assertions as fundamentally flawed and untrue. Paddy Lightfoot and Alex Lightfoot, Together for Sandown councillors, have said, We have now seen multiple island media sources citing planning rules as a block to development in Sandown based upon assertions by a current Sandown County councillor. These assertions are fundamentally flawed and untrue, evidenced by the fact that in Sandown, the Esplanade and Sandown hotels have been granted mixed use and the King's Bar has been granted residential permission. Most recently, a Shanklin Seafront Hotel has been granted change of use to fully residential. They also raise concerns about private sector investment, citing examples of properties in Sandown that remain undeveloped despite having planning permission. Paddy Lightfoot and Alex Lightfoot, Together for Sandown councillors, have said the same Sandown County councillor asserts that private investment is the answer to Sandown's problems. We want to make it clear uncaring private sector investment is the reason we are where we are. Many of our derelict properties have private owners and have had planning permission granted, yet they are still neglected. The pair say they support a more proactive approach, including direct investment and community-led initiatives, such as the potential creation of a community benefit society. They highlight several projects already delivered or in progress, including funding towards the play zone at Sandham Gardens, the creation of the Bay Business Association, and a recent Town of Culture bid. In recent weeks, they have also pushed for Sandown Town Council to purchase land in front of the Ocean Hotel, which they say would give the community greater control over a key seafront site. Paddy Lightfoot and Alex Lightfoot, Together for Sandown councillors, have said, in the last few weeks, we have pushed for the Town Council to get directly involved by purchasing the strategic strip of land at the front of the Ocean Hotel. This purchase gives the community a direct say in what happens with a prime piece of seafront real estate. We both fully support the recent Town Council decision to explore compulsory purchase orders.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Concerns raised over fire training facility plans at Island Farm. Concerns have been raised over a proposed fire training facility at an Isle of Wight farm, with warnings it could pose a potential risk of contamination. The Environment Agency has highlighted the possibility of water pollution in response to plans by maritime training company Flying Fish UK to change the use of land at Cockleton Farm on the outskirts of Cowes and Gurnard. The concerns come amid dozens of objections to the scheme from local residents and Gurnard Parish Council. In its submission, the Environment Agency said the site's current or historic use suggests there may be contamination present, which could be disturbed during construction and potentially impact groundwater and surface water. However, the agency indicated that the development could still go ahead if strict conditions are met. This includes requiring a detailed land contamination management strategy to be submitted and approved, ensuring any risks are properly controlled during the works. Without such measures in place, the Environment Agency has warned it would object to the application in line with national planning policy. Planning agents acting on behalf of Flying Fish UK maintain the development is needed to support business growth and have said the scheme has been carefully designed to avoid harm to the environment, neighbouring properties, highways or drainage. A public consultation on the plans is going until 29th of April, with a decision expected to follow.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. New community hub and catering unit approved for Bay C.F.E. School in Sandown. A multi-use hub for community events, refreshments during football matches and job training will be installed within the grounds of an Isle of Wight school. County Hall has accepted plans from the Bay C.F.E. School to site a huddle catering unit housed within a shipping container on its secondary campus in Sandown. The initiative's objectives include better food access, revenue creation, supporting student learning, and strengthening community engagement. A council decision report on proposal 25/01850/ FUL said the container's unit's green metal cladding would appear in keeping with the green playing fields close to the development at the Fairway site. Explaining the scope of the hub, the school's agent, ERMC, previously listed services such as daily hot meals and snacks for pupils, on-site food provision for events including parents' evenings, staff meetings, performances and work experience. The consultants also mentioned community services outside school hours, including catering for groups, sports clubs and charities, partnerships with farms, suppliers and social enterprises, and a weekend or evening cafe. ERMC said, with a balanced mix of daily student revenue and regular community bookings, the unit is expected to become self-sustaining within 12 to 24 months and generate surplus funds that can support broader school initiatives. Tyler Franklin, who lives in Ryde, told the council, "My daughter plays football at the Bay Secondary and the provision of catering will improve the experience during match days. The Isle of Wight Girls League hosts its summer tournament at the Bay, and this will also provide a chance for players and supporters to get refreshments without having to leave the site, which is better for those attending, as well as providing an additional income to support the school in improving their sports facilities even further."
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Isle of Wight to take centre stage in new Channel 4 rail series. The Isle of Wight is set to be showcased to a national audience this week as comedian and presenter Paul Merton visits the island in a brand new Channel 4 series focused on Britain's railways. The episode of Paul Merton, Driving Amazing Trains, We'll see the popular TV personality arrive on the Isle of Wight via Wight Link's fast cat service into Ryde, highlighting one of the UK's most unusual travel experiences, where rail and ferry seamlessly connect. During his visit, Paul explores the Isle of Wight's rich railway heritage, following in the footsteps of his father, who worked as a London Underground driver. Viewers will see him ride in the cab of former Northern Line trains now operating on the island's railway network. The programme also captures Paul taking control of a heritage steam train, alongside experiencing rural island life on a working farm. The episode further delves into the Isle of Wight's lesser-known historical significance, including its role in preparations for D-Day. Wight Link played a key part in the filming, with passengers on board the Fast Cat treated to a surprise as Paul delivered a live welcome announcement from the bridge, alongside the captain, during the crossing. The episode is also available on Catch Up.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Emergency services rescue worker from scaffolding in Newport. Emergency services were called to a residential street in Newport Wednesday after a worker became unwell while on scaffolding. Firefighters from Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service, alongside paramedics from the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service, were dispatched to Bury Close off Furlongs at around 9:15 a.m. Multiple crews attended the scene, including pumping appliances from Newport and Ryde, as well as an aerial ladder platform and command unit. Ambulance resources were also sent, with a quiet cul-de-sac quickly filling with emergency vehicles. It's understood the man had been working on a roof when he was taken ill at height, prompting a coordinated rescue operation. A spokesperson for the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service said, firefighters in Newport responded to an incident on Bury Close shortly before 9 a.m. this morning, where a man required rescue from scaffolding. Crews successfully carried out the operation using an aerial ladder platform, bringing the individual safely to the ground. Firefighters returned to the station shortly after 10:30 a.m. Crews worked to safely bring the casualty down from the scaffolding using the aerial ladder platform. He was then transferred into the care of paramedics and taken by ambulance to St Mary's Hospital for further treatment. Bury Close was temporarily blocked while the incident was ongoing, but the scene has since been cleared following the successful rescue.
This is Den reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio. Garlic Farm co-owner takes on Ireland's first ever Nuffield Farming Scholarship. Natasha Edwards, director and co-owner of the Garlic Farm, has completed a year of global travel as part of a Nuffield Farming Scholarship, becoming the first person from the Isle of Wight to receive the prestigious award. Over the past year, Natasha has travelled the world from New Zealand and the USA to India and Denmark as part of the 2-year programme, exploring how farming businesses can create more positive social and environmental impact while remaining financially viable. Founded in 1947, the Nuffield Farming Scholarship is one of the most respected programmes in global agriculture, supporting farmers to step away from their day-to-day work and learn from others around the world. Natasha says, "It's incredibly competitive and very prestigious, and as soon as you become a Nuffield Scholar, the doors that open are unbelievable. You're suddenly part of a global network, visiting farms, sharing ideas and learning from people facing the same challenges in completely different environments. At the Garlic Farm, founded by her father, Colin Boswell, and now run by Natasha, her husband Barnes, and other family members, restorative, social and environmental practices have become central to the business. The farm is organic certified, runs Pasture for Life livestock, and is a certified B Corp, something Natasha wants to explore further through her research. She has said, "At the Garlic Farm, we've chosen to focus quite heavily on improving our environmental and social credentials. Those certifications have been fundamental in shaping how we farm and how we do business. I wanted to understand how important that is globally and how we encourage more farmers to move towards better practices." Her travels included a case study in Andhra Pradesh, India, where millions of farmers are working to reduce their reliance on chemicals, shifting towards natural farming for the benefit of community and environment, despite significant economic challenges. Balancing the scholarship with running a busy Isle of Wight business has not been easy, but Natasha credits her family and their team at the farm for making it possible. Natasha explains, "There's a tendency when you run a business to think you can't step away, but actually, when you do, people step up. It's been an opportunity for everyone to grow, and it makes the business more resilient." Now entering the final phase of the programme, Natasha will produce a written report, film and presentation, which will be shared internationally through the Nuffield network. She also hopes her experience will inspire others on the Isle of Wight. She adds, "Because there's never been a Nuffield scholar on the island, it wasn't something I even knew about until later on. I'd love to see more island farmers apply and venture off the island, learn and bring that knowledge back." Natasha will be sharing her findings at a special evening event at the Garlic Farm on the 7th of May, open to farmers and anyone interested in the future of food and farming.
This is the second part of Talking News, read by Gerard
And Carolyn.
We begin with more news items taken from the County Press and the Observer. Main Road is to close for 11 days. Drivers are facing another traffic headache as one of the main routes in Newport looks to shut for 11 days. Fairley Road is scheduled to close between the morning of Monday, the 20th of April, to Friday, the 1st of May, or when the works have been completed. The closure is to allow Dial A Road Engineering Services, i.e. DARES, to install new sewer and water connections. Traffic will have to divert via Staplers Road, a traffic notice said. Southern Vectis said its routes 5, 9, 49, 59, number 5, number 9 will also be affected. All Route 9 and number 9 via Medina will operate via Staplers. Route 5 and number 5 will operate via Staplers. White Rails Road, Lushington Hill, to reach Whippingham East Cows. Route 49 and 59 will serve Medina College and then divert via Staplers to Ryde in both directions. Stops between Hillside and Binfield Road, Binfield Corner, will not be served.
Drink driver 46 smashes into parked vehicles. A drink driver crashed into parked vehicles while nearly 3 times the limit after turning to alcohol as a coping mechanism, a court heard. Joseph Marshall, 46, of Newport Road, Cowes, appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday, April the 7th. He admitted 1 count of drink driving on March the 1st. Jason Spellman, prosecuting, said at around 7 p.m. police were contacted by a woman who heard a loud bang while she was in her living room. She found her partner's work van had been damaged in a crash on Newport Road, Mr. Spellman said. The woman witnessed a man, Marshall, get out of his vehicle, a Volkswagen. An officer attended, and while speaking to him, it became clear Marshall had been drinking. A breath test came back as positive. The lowest of 2 readings was 103 micrograms, when the legal limit is 35. Oscar Vincent, defending, said Marshall has mental health issues but has been seeking help over the past 12 months. On the day, Marshall, with no previous convictions, had a build-up of compelling anxiety and turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism, Mr. Vincent said. Magistrates adjourned the case to June the 9th.
Pensioner evicted from home, left living in hotel. A pensioner's life has been turned upside down after being evicted from his home of 2 decades. Mark Blythe, 77 years old, had been living in a flat on Langford Manor Road in Shanklin since December 2005. But last November, the court ruled in his landlord's favor, and Mark was given 6 weeks to vacate. He had been searching for a new place to live for over a year, had nowhere to go, and eventually a possession order was issued, requiring him to leave by the 24th of March. Mark, who suffered a stroke in 2022 and has struggled with mobility issues since, now finds himself living out of a single ground floor room at Yelf's Hotel in Ryde. He was also required to have all his belongings moved out of his former address by the 7th of April. But he had nowhere to put them and can't afford storage. He was only able to take his clothes with him, and he now worries all his furniture from his former home will be thrown away. I was dreading it, said Mark, who shared the flat with his late partner until she died 4 years ago. I have been there for 20 years and never had any issues. I was right up to date with the rent and everything. It came out of nowhere. I was gutted the day he served me with the papers. The council arranged for me to go to Yelf's Hotel the day I got evicted. It's 1 room, basically. It's not a bad-sized room, but there are no amenities, no television or anything like that. So I just catch the bus and go around the island all day. Mark, who was born in Shanklin, moved to Basingstoke at the age of 17 to seek his fortune, taking up an apprenticeship as a mechanical engineer. He traveled and worked in various countries around Europe, including Turkey, France, and Spain, then returned to Shanklin in 1982. From there, he worked various jobs and retired at 55, his last job being a delivery driver. The council says there is nowhere else to go, said Mark. I just want a 1-bedroom ground floor flat. That's all I need. I would like to live in Shanklin ideally. I was born and bred there. I don't need this stress at this stage of my life. Sadly, Mark's story is not unusual, but highlights a big issue on the island. As previously recorded, at the end of last year, 240 households were recorded as homeless or living in temporary or emergency accommodation on the island. Earlier this year, the Council admitted there is a reliance on bed and breakfast, B&B, accommodation, but said it is committed to reducing this.
Well-known gelatier Eddie dies aged 104. Well-known island figure Edward Eddie Minghella, master gelatier, businessman and patriarch of one of Britain's most creative families, has died aged 104. Born in 1921, he spent his early childhood between Scotland and Italy before the hardships of the interwar years pushed him into work at a young age. Among his earliest jobs was shepherding buffalo to help support his family. Returning to Britain in the late 1940s, he met Gloria Akari on the Isle of Wight, and the couple married in 1950. That same year, they founded what would grow into the island's most celebrated ice cream brand, Minghella Ice Cream, which still trades today. Working initially from Gloria's mother's cafe on Ryde High Street and a small fleet of vans serving towns including Ryde, Cowes and Yarmouth, they introduced post-war islanders to flavours and sorbets described in later national tributes as exotic. The cafe quickly became a much-loved gathering place for young people, known for its Knickerbocker glories, Sundays, and the welcoming atmosphere the couple created. From these modest beginnings, Eddie steadily expanded the business. Drawing on Italian traditions and rich dairy ingredients, he developed a distinctive range of artisan flavours that helped secure Minghella ice cream's status as an island institution. Over more than 7 decades, combinations such as black cherries and kirsch, and oriental ginger and honey became part of the brand's hallmark, sitting alongside classic favourites and reinforcing its reputation for quality. While Gloria later became a mayor, magistrate, deputy lieutenant and prominent charity campaigner, national tributes have long noted that the couple's partnership in business underpinned her public commitments. The Minghellas raised a large family whose achievements carried their name far beyond the island. Their son, the late Anthony Minghella, who worked in the family ice cream business before becoming an Oscar-winning film director, often credits his parents' example and the work ethic learned during those early years. The late Edana Minghella was best known as a jazz singer and recording artist, performing in the venues on the Isle of Wight, across the UK and in Italy, and releasing several albums. She was also recognised professionally as a doctor for her work in mental health services and policy, advocating for better mental health care and early dementia diagnosis, and she was a writer on the TV series Doc Martin. Loretta is known for her leadership roles in public and church life. She also ran the Financial Services Compensation Scheme during the financial crisis, then later became Chief Executive of Christian Aid before serving as the Church of England's first Church Estates Commissioner. She is now Master of Clare College, Cambridge. Dominic Minghella is best known as a British television writer and producer, particularly for creating the ITV comedy drama Doc Martin and serving as lead writer and showrunner on the BBC's Robin Hood, as well as writing and producing on series such as Hamish Macbeth and Nightfall. Joya Minghella is best known for on the Isle of Wight as the long-time figurehead of Minghella Ice Cream and a prominent local community figure, running the family's business and supporting island charities and organisations such as Sight for Wight and Citizens Advice. And Edward's grandson Max Minghella is best known internationally as a British actor and director, notably for playing Nick Blaine in The Handmaid's Tale and for film roles in Syriana, The Social Network, The Ides of March, Spiral and Babylon, as well as moving into directing with projects such as Shell and other recent films. Edward is survived by a wide, extended family. Funeral arrangements will be announced in due course.
Specialist rope access teams to carry out work. A rope access team will be used to carry out high-level inspections of hard-to-reach retaining walls in Ventnor. The work is scheduled to begin the week of April the 20th. The surveys will help island roads to plan and deliver any required maintenance. Victoria Keefe, Structures Inspection Team Leader at Island Roads, said, "With a varied network, we use different inspection techniques according to the location. This includes use of divers, of drones, and also teams that are skilled in working in confined spaces. Sometimes it is also necessary to call on skilled rope access teams, and we are delighted to once again be working with Roxall Base MMC, who have provided an excellent service for us previously. The 4 retaining walls selected for inspection are located in Ventnor on Alpine Road, 2 structures, Castle Road, and the Cascades. The work is hoped to be undertaken with a daytime road closure between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. at each site, though pedestrian access along the Cascades will be maintained during the inspection. It is hoped all surveys will be completed within 1 week."
Isle of Wight butterfly enthusiast finds species once thought extinct. A butterfly once declared extinct in the UK has made a remarkable return, with a string of sightings across southern England, including its striking first recorded in 2026 appearance on the Isle of Wight. The large tortoiseshell, absent as a resident breeding species for almost 4 decades, has been recorded on the Isle of Wight. The year's first confirmed UK sighting was made by West Wight resident Nikki Kaunaki on February the 24th in her garden. Nikki photographed 2 of the butterflies together in her garden. She submitted the record through the iRecord Butterflies app, which guides users through identification to feed data to the National Database of National Charity Butterfly Conservation. Nikki described the moment as exciting, especially given the butterfly's long-held status as extinct in the UK. "This is a rare species and needs to be protected," said Nikki, who first spotted one near her home in 2020, then in her garden in 2023 and last year. I recorded the first large tortoiseshell sighting in the UK for the year. This was again in our garden, and 2 were seen together. The sighting was recognised and added to the first sightings listing of breeding butterflies in the UK for the very first time. What a great record! So far this year, I have recorded a large tortoiseshell many times, all within the confines of our garden. What a great start to the year! There were at least 8 distinct individuals. Other sightings of the rare insect have also been made on the island recently, which includes Freshwater, Wootton, Parkhurst Forest, Boldner Forest, and at Osborne House. The species has also been seen in other southern counties, Hampshire, Dorset, Kent, Sussex, and even as far west as Cornwall, during a remarkable 2-week spell from late February to early March. While occasional sightings have been logged over the years, nature enthusiasts say the recent surge marks a clear rise in encounters. Professor Richard Fox, Head of Science at Butterfly Conservation, says the species status is now under serious review. According to him, if the charity were to update its official endangered species list today, the large tortoiseshell would likely be reclassified as no longer extinct. Known scientifically as Nymphalis polychloros, the large tortoiseshell is a vibrant relative of the familiar small tortoiseshell, distinguished by its larger size and different wing patterns. It was once widespread across England and Wales, but vanished as a breeding species in the late 1980s.
Barmaid tells couple to leave, then gets injured. An abusive woman hurled a glass at a pub bar, causing it to shatter and injure the barmaid, who had told her to leave. Joanne Primer of Mill Square, Wootton Bridge, appeared for sentencing at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, the 27th of March. At an earlier hearing, she admitted inflicting actual bodily harm on a woman at the Prince of Wales pub in Newport on July the 29th last year, together with 4 counts of shoplifting from Tesco in Wootton. The court heard 52-year-old Primer and her partner had been drinking at the pub throughout the afternoon. A barmaid checking CCTV saw the pair apparently asleep on benches in the garden and unable to rouse them. She sought help from a customer. When she returned, Primer was standing, her shorts around her ankles, while her partner insisted they would leave only when they choose to, said Serena Edwards, prosecuting. When the barmaid warned she would call the police if they did not leave, the men got in her face, shouting at her, causing her to retreat inside the pub. As tensions rose, Primer began making threats to her. Although it appeared the couple were preparing to go, Primer suddenly launched her glass towards the bar, which shattered, sending shards flying. Pieces of broken glass hit the barmaid, cutting her neck, hands, and arms. The wound to her neck bled, and she required treatment at St. Mary's Hospital. Primer and her partner walked out immediately after the attack. When arrested, Primer admitted being responsible and said she felt terrible about injuring the woman. The court also heard she stole £27.60 worth of alcohol, snacks, and confectionery from Tesco across 4 visits between October the 9th and 23rd. None of the goods were recovered. For Premier, Brian McMonnies said the offences were out of character and rooted in alcohol misuse following the catastrophic loss of a previous partner. Premier, who has bipolar disorder, was now engaging with inclusion. Magistrates imposed a 12-month community order and was told to pay £100 compensation to the victim, £27.60 to Tesco, and £85 costs.
Marrakechian boom sees marathon demand surge. Marathon tourism, known as Marrakechians, is booming across Europe, with new research showing the Isle of Wight is right at the heart of the trend. A study by Sport Shoes has revealed that the Isle of Wight Marathon is among the continent's most sought-after races, ranking in Europe's top 15 hardest events to secure a place in, and standing as the only marathon in the UK to feature. Sport Shoes analysed global research demand for Europe's most famous marathon events and compared it with the number of available places. The trend reflects a major shift in how runners are choosing their races. Instead of sticking to big city events, more athletes are travelling specifically for adventure-based courses, culture, food, and the chance to explore new destinations. With its undulating coastal roads, sea views, and rural landscapes, the Isle of Wight Marathon fits squarely into that growing niche. Its relatively small field size means places are limited, making it more competitive than many better-known races. According to the study, the event recorded 31.6 Google searches per 2023 finishers, significantly higher than the London Marathon's 25.5 searches per finisher. Despite London's reputation for being difficult to enter, its huge field of more than 56,000 participants pushes it outside Europe's top 15, when demand is measured relative to capacity. In contrast, the Isle of Wight Marathon's long-standing course, which winds through some of the island's most scenic countryside and coastline, is becoming increasingly desirable for runners seeking something different from typical urban marathons. Topping the European list is Switzerland's Zermatt Marathon with 81.2 searches per finisher, followed by Lausanne, 68.7, also in Switzerland, and Zagreb in Croatia, 65.9. The data forms part of the new Sport Shoes Running Report, examining trends across endurance sport. It reveals that 1 in 10 runners plan to enter a marathon in 2026, with many now prioritising remote, scenic and culturally distinctive locations. While some European races attract thousands of finishers every year, others, including the Isle of Wight Marathon, offer far fewer places, making them much harder to secure. This year's Isle of Wight Marathon is the 70th edition on October the 4th. The entry is capped at 400 runners.
Night burglar targets garden sheds. A burglar who crept in the night to raid multiple garden sheds in Newport for high-value items, has now been sentenced. Thomas James Mason, 29 years old, of Staplers Road in Newport, appeared before the Isle of Wight Magistrate Court on Monday, 27th of March. Mason admitted 3 counts of burglary, possession of an offensive weapon in public, and possession of cannabis. Mason carried out the burglaries on the night of the 20th of September last year, targeting 2 properties in Greenways and another in nearby Saxon Close in Newport. Under the cover of darkness, he entered back gardens and forced his way into sheds before stealing a range of items. He took a grass trimmer, battery lawnmower, cordless trimmer, garden furniture and tools. On the 24th of September, Mason was found in Newport in possession of an offensive weapon, a makeshift cost fashioned from a snooker ball inside his sock, which he claimed was for self-defense. The following day, officers found him in possession of cannabis. He was handed a 2-year community order, which includes a 12-month drug rehabilitation requirement, 35 rehabilitation days, and a 12-week mental health treatment program. Mason was ordered to pay £455 compensation.
Council officer roles with salaries of over £100,000. There are 12 Isle of Wight Council senior manager positions with salaries of more than £100,000 a year. New figures show. County Hall's chief executive, Wendy Pereira, has full-time equivalent pay of £153,236, 8 times more than the lowest paid positions at the local authority on £19,290, according to data obtained through Freedom of Information requests. The next most remunerative roles are the Strategic Director of Adult Social Care and Housing, £129,500, the Strategic Director of Children's Services, £129,500, Strategic Director Community Services, £125,017, Director of Corporate Services, £120,465, and Director of Public Health, £116,278. The Isle of Wight Council officer roles with a full-time equivalent salary of over £100,000 per year. Chief Executive, Strategic Director of Adult Social Care and Housing, Service Director Commissioning Adult Social Services, Service Director, Question and Answer Practice Development, Adult Social Services, Strategic Director of Children's Services, Service Director, Children's Social Care, a Director of Corporate Services, Assistant Director of Corporate Services, Service Director Finance, Strategic Director Community Services, Service Director Community Regeneration and Economy, Director of Public Health Alliance Group, and Council Leader. Phil Jordan said, "Residents are absolutely right to ask questions and want to know about senior salaries, especially at a time when many residents and households are experiencing real financial pressure." These roles are not typical jobs. They include statutory leadership positions responsible for safeguarding vulnerable children and adults, managing complex services, and ensuring the council meets its legal duties. When you look at comparable councils, these salaries are broadly in line and in many cases lower than the same or similar roles elsewhere. It's also important to recognise that compared to the private sector, these positions are typically paid significantly less overall, often by a wide margin once bonuses and incentives are considered. Recruiting and retaining staff and experienced leaders on the Isle of Wight brings additional challenges due to our geography, which naturally limits the pool of candidates. Councillor Jordan added that the island struggles to recruit candidates with the necessary background and experience for many important job roles, with salaries simply reflecting that situation.
Road closure hits the trade. Seafront businesses in Ventnor say the prolonged closure of Bath Road is damaging trade 2.5 years after a retaining wall collapsed and with legal proceedings still no nearer resolution. Bath Road has been shut since the 23rd of October in 2023, cutting off one of the main accesses route onto the popular seafront. Esplanade traders say the closure has made Ventnor harder to reach and navigate, discouraging visitors and compounding the effects of other long-running disruption to the town. Responsibility for repairing the wall remains disputed between the Isle of Wight Council and the landowner, leaving businesses facing another uncertain summer. Ventnor Councillor Ed Blake said frustration was reaching boiling point, with the weather authority is dealing with it. He said the council told him on 3 separate occasions he would fund the repair, only to later withdraw the offer. There are more than 100 retaining walls in this area, where ownership is unclear. If the council fixes this one, it opens the door to others, Councillor Blake said. Councillor Blake said repairing the wall to highway standards would involve a 6-figure cost, while the landowner could complete the work for a fraction of that, because it would not need to meet certain specifications. Legal proceedings to determine ownership have been delayed. A hearing scheduled for January failed to find a way forward, with the case now adjourned until the 5th of August. Councillor Blake said delays are unacceptable and has called for mediation, urging a temporary solution to support Ventnor's economy. On the seafront, business say the effects are stark. Tony Groves, owner of Lady Scarlett's Tea Room, described the situation as heartbreaking. People get so far down Bath Road, can't go any further, turn around and leave, he said. I've seen a 20 to 30% drop in trade since Bath Road shut. If it should close at the other end, we are stuffed. Lisa Boynton, who runs the Esplanade Beach shop, agreed with Tony. We've lost about 25% of our trade. Once people turn back, you don't get that business again, she explained. Jody Berry of the Longshoremen Museum and Gift Shop also believes closure is deterring visitors. You see people at the top of Bath Road, not knowing how to get down, she said. They give up and go elsewhere. Cynthia Reckitt, who owns the Smoking Lobster restaurant, said road closures and two-way traffic along the esplanade ruins the experience for customers. Ventnor feels inaccessible. There is no help from the council, she added. Tony Horsfield, owner of Tony's Tea Room, echoed Cynthia's sentiments, adding, "Returning customers are amazed Bath Road is still closed." Abby Lyons, co-owner of Blake Tea Hut, said traffic and emergency access were major concerns. She said, "This whole thing's gone on for nearly 3 years. It's completely unacceptable. It feels like the council has given up on Ventnor." The council said it remains committed to reopening Bath Road as quickly as possible, though for businesses, the lack of a clear timetable remains a concern.
Man throws knives and douses himself in petrol amid siege. A racist man who doused himself in petrol, threw knives out of a window and claimed to have a gun during a police siege at his home has been spared jail. Bradley Tolfrey of Newport Street Ryde appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Friday, March the 27th. The 25-year-old admitted 3 counts of assault by beating of an emergency worker, a fray, a racially aggravated public order offence, and threatening to destroy property on August the 9th, 2025. Prosecutor Tim Devlin said an alert was put out to locate Tolfrey at around 9 p.m. He said Tolfrey had threatened to jump off a cliff, and police visited his home at around 11:10 p.m. after receiving information that he was there. Mr. Devlin said the back door was open and the lights were on, but Tolfrey was not home. Around an hour later, police returned, and Tolfrey shouted from an upstairs window. He threw knives at police officers and threatened to throw more before shouting further abuse. Mr. Devlin said Tolfrey told police he would slit their throats if they entered the address, and later threatened to slit his own throat before covering himself in petrol, telling officers he was going to set himself alight and throwing the petrol canister at them. Mr. Devlin said police fetched fire extinguishers as a precaution. Then Tolfrey smashed the window, proceeded to throw shards of glass, and accused police of failing to protect the public, making reference to immigrants. He called one officer a racial slur and made threats. He went on to claim he had a 9mm gun and produced what looked like a rifle at the window, causing police to retreat behind hard cover. The gun-shaped item, later found to be a sealant gun in a black bag, was thrown out the window, and once police entered the property, Tolfrey was assisted down from a loft. During his arrest, he spat at 3 police officers and threatened to bite another. Judge Daniel Sawyer said Tolfrey was clearly in a mental health crisis at the time, and while that didn't excuse his actions, it went some way to explain them. Tolfrey, who had 21 previous convictions for 44 offences, and who committed the offences a month after his 26-week suspended sentence expired, was made subject of a 24-month community order to include rehab, mental health treatment, and alcohol abstinence monitoring. He must pay £240 compensation to police.
Farm boss admits horse neglect after repeated denials. A farm director has admitted 4 counts of animal neglect relating to 2 horses after previously denying all wrongdoing in court several times. Trevor John Rand, 62, of Mews Lane in Newport, appeared before the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on the 26th of March, where he changed his pleas to guilty on all 4 charges concerning horses TikTok and Twisty. The county press has reported on Rand's court appearances on multiple occasions, during which he consistently pleaded not guilty and contested allegations about his horses' welfare at Little Fairley Farm. In a separate case last year, a court heard that 2 other horses, Dave and Reggie, be permanently removed from Rand's care after ruling they were suffering. The court was told Dave, an elderly horse in his mid-50s, was found in very poor body condition, infested with lice, soiled with feces and urine, and suffering health problems linked to malnourishment and lack of routine dental care. District Judge David Robinson granted an application for Dave to be permanently signed over to the RSPCA and said he was unlikely to be rehomed due to his age and condition. The court later ruled on the fate of Reggie, another horse, seized from Little Fairley Farm. Rand had told the court Reggie was worth £250,000 and said he had raised him from a foal, despite questions over legal ownership. The RSPCA was awarded permanent possession of Reggie. The latest charges relate to 2 different mares, TikTok and Twisty, between July and October 2024. The court heard that between July 23rd and October 25th, Rand failed to take reasonable steps to ensure TikTok's needs were met by not investigating and addressing the cause of her poor body condition, failing to protect her from pain, suffering, injury, and disease. Between July the 29th and October the 31st, he was said to have similarly failed to meet the welfare needs of a bay mare named Twisty. Further charges allege that between the 8th of October and the 31st of October, he failed to provide Twisty with effective treatment for rain, scald, and mud fever, and did not provide adequate vet treatment for deformities in her front legs and swelling in her hind legs. Rand, unrepresented in court, changed his pleas to guilty on all 4 counts at the 26th of March hearing. He will be sentenced on Monday, the 2nd of June.
Historic ferry service set to go into liquidation. The historic Hythe ferry, owned by ferry firm Red Funnel, is set to be liquidated. The Hythe and Southampton Ferry Company has announced it is being placed into voluntary liquidation. The company made the decision after an 18-month search for a solution to revive the service. It is owned by cross-Solent ferry operator Red Funnel, which runs services to the island. Red Funnel and its owner, Njord Partners, previously planned to sell the company. Efforts included seeking funding, grant support, and inviting potential investors. However, no viable proposals or interested parties came forward. Legal advice was sought before making the decision to place the company into voluntary liquidation. Posting on social media, the company said, "This is a deeply disappointing outcome and not one that has been reached lightly. the company issued a heartfelt thank you to all those who supported the ferry during its challenging period, acknowledging the service's importance to the community. They also said all staff members have been contacted and will be supported through the process by the liquidators. Corporate restructure specialists Leonard Curtis have been appointed to assist with the process.
Family-run firm secures contract. A new partnership will see a family-run company deliver horticultural, arboricultural and landscaping services across the island's highways network. Groundsel Contracting Limited has taken over the contract from previous provider ID Verde. The initial deal with Island Roads is for 6 years, after which an annual roll-on agreement may also be activated. This means Groundsel could be partnering with Island Roads for the remainder of the firm's highways PFI contract. As part of the deal, employees from ID Verde will transfer across to Groundsel. Groundsel will undertake work including grass cutting and vegetation management across the island's highway network. The deal also strengthens the network of local companies used by Island Roads to deliver services. Last year, £5.2 million was spent with allied companies by Island Roads, which also employs around 200 islanders. Groundsel, which works out of a headquarter on Forest Road, Newport, has previously provided tree-related services to Island Roads, including assistance during storm events. Steve Ashman, Island Roads Service Director, said, "We are delighted to have strengthened our relationship with Groundsel, a well-known and established local company with a great local reputation for high-quality work. We've worked with Groundsel over many years, including in some very severe weather conditions, and we have always found they go above and beyond to ensure work is delivered on time and to a very good standard. Using local companies and expertise is extremely important to us. Having local supply chain partners increases our business resilience, brings additional local know-how to the business, and also supports the island's economy." Mr. Ashman praised the previous partnership with ID Verde. Paul Wight, Groundsel Contracts Manager, said, "We've enjoyed a very good relationship with Island Roads and are delighted to be expanding our work with them."
Teen who ran Lighthouse alone. Just off Bembridge Beach is St Helens Fort. Some readers may have walked around it on low spring tides, but in the 1920s it was a working lighthouse and the family home for 15-year-old Ethel Langton and her parents, for Ethel's father was the lighthouse keeper. He maintained the oil-burning light, kept the oil tank filled, and wound the clockwork mechanism which turned the lantern. To reach the lantern meant climbing on iron ladder which led to the top of the lighthouse tower. Nice on a summer's day, but nasty in bad weather. One cold Saturday morning in March 1926, Ethel's parents left the fort in their small boat for their weekly shopping trip to Bembridge, telling her to expect them back by midday. But just after they left, a gale-force storm set in, and by evening it was obvious to Ethel that her parents wouldn't be coming back that night. She was alone on a lighthouse with her only with her only company, her dog, Badger. To make matters worse, it was her 15th birthday. But Ethel was a smart, resourceful girl. She knew only too well that the light would have to be lit, so, bracing herself against the raging storm, she crossed to the base of the lantern ladder and began to climb. The bitterly cold spray soaked her, tearing her headscarf away, and at one point her foot slipped, leaving her momentarily hanging by her arms. Carrying on largely by touch, she eventually reached the lantern, lit the lamp, and wound the mechanism before making her way back down. Not only did Ethel manage that, but during the night she made several repeat climbs to make sure the light was working properly. When morning came, Ethel was exhausted and cold. The storm was still raging, and the fort was cold and damp, with no fire to warm herself by. The storm, described later as worse than any in living memory, raged for the next 2 days, and the chances of Ethel's parents returning were 0. She spent her days resting when she could, reading, playing patience, and doing crossword puzzles in order to save her energy for maintaining the light. As the county press reported, each evening she climbed the ladder again to check the oil and wind the mechanism.
The climb up the ladder to the tower was a struggle, with high winds, heavy rain, and waves breaking close below. On one occasion, she remained in the lantern housing for over an hour to complete the necessary work. Miss Langton, a sturdy, vivacious girl, later told our representative, "I was not a bit frightened. I was not evenly lonely, because I had Badger with me. On Tuesday morning, I became very anxious, as there was no oil left for the light. I occupied most of my time in reading, playing patience. Her food supplies were minimal, some bread, a small amount of sugar, and little else. When the bread ran out, she made a loaf from what flour she could find. Much of her food consisted of bread soaked in sugared water, which she shared with Badger. By the 3rd day, Ethel was freezing cold, hungry, and exhausted. The oil was nearly gone, and she was worried that it would run out before help came. What of Mr. and Mrs. Langton? Well, still unable to return, they were very worried about Ethel. So on Tuesday morning, they persuaded 3 local fishermen to set out in a motorboat to the fort. It was a dangerous journey, but the men eventually managed to struggle through the stormy waves and take food to the fort. Ethel was asleep when they arrived and was woken up by Badger barking. The seas were still too rough for her parents to return in their own boat, until late on Tuesday afternoon, when the local lifeboat crew then made the trip out, taking an hour and a half for a journey that normally took 10 minutes. And Ethel's 3-day vigil finally came to an end. Unknown to Ethel, by this time she had become a national celebrity, and Fleet Street's finest were clamoring to interview the plucky girl who could run a lighthouse single-handedly and still find time to bake bread. Ethel was a national heroine, and she was presented with a Lloyd's Medal for Meritorious Service, the youngest person ever to receive it. and received honours from all across Britain and even from abroad. When Ethel died, years later, she renewed her link to the Limehouse all those years ago. Her ashes were scattered around St. Helens Fort from the Bembridge lifeboat.
Days gone by. The county press has been bringing the news to islanders since 1884. We've delved into the archives. 125 years ago, in April 1901, the SS Albion opened the steamboat season by calling at Ventnor Pier to take 52 passengers to Bournemouth. The county press received a telegram from a Royal Navy aide saying Princess Henry of Mountbatten of Battenberg was making progress after an accident. Sandown Town Hall hosted a demonstration of bayonet versus bayonet and sabre versus sabre duels by two army sergeants. 100 years ago, in April 1926, the annual Isle of Wight point-to-point race in West Wight, organised by the Isle of Wight Hunt, attracted a large crowd who lined the route from Prospect Hill Shalcombe to Tapnell Freshwater. Sandown District Council queried plans for an amusement park on land at the old Coast Guard station along Culver Road. At Ryde Town Council meeting, a report from the Sanitary and Health Committee was read by Island representative Dr. Mackenzie, who said 100 weight and 3 quires and 24 pounds of diseased meat had been destroyed during the month.
75 years ago, in April 1951, Polish scientist Dr. Jan Bronowski, who was a member of a Japanese mission to study the effects of the atomic bomb, gave a talk to the Ryde branch of the United Nations Association on the future use of atomic energy. The Ryde Ratepayers Association called for a 10 miles per hour speed limit along the esplanade after highlighting the danger to children in the area. Fire crews were called to Albany Barracks, Parkhurst, after a soldier had left an iron on, burning a hole through a tabletop and causing extensive smoke damage. 50 years ago, in April 1976, the Isle of Wight Vegetarian Society was formed after a county press report on the idea led to increased interest. Several complaints of ex-certificate films being shown in preference to children's films at Ryde's 3 cinemas were made at a Medina Borough Council policy and resources meeting. The RNLI announced Yarmouth was to receive a new lifeboat, the Joy and John Wade, at a cost of £200,000. The island branch of the National Farmers Union protested against the Southern Water Authority's plan to add fluoride to the island's water supplies. For more details of the past, subscribe to our online archive, where you can read the county press editions dating back to 1884.
What's on? Tuesday the 21st of April, Newport Drop-In Support Group at 1 p.m. Support group for people living with diabetes. All welcome, St Thomas of Canterbury Catholic Church Hall, 69B High Street, Newport. They can be contacted on the following email: diabetesgroup Isle of Wight at gmail.com. Telephone number 0741 5399 102.
Now section for public information. New station room will help young people. From Chief Inspector Andy MacDonald, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary. Across recent months, I have highlighted how working in partnership with local organizations, including the Isle of Wight Council, Public Health, NHS services, and housing providers, allow us to better place and support our residents on the Isle of Wight. A recent project led by the Isle of Wight Council's Youth Justice Service in collaboration with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary has allowed us to redesign a room at Newport Police Station to better support young people who may be encountering the justice system for the first time. The Youth Justice Services Child First Spaces project looks to reduce the anxiety young people may experience when encountering police or the justice system as witnesses or suspects, allowing more constructive conversations. The Child First approach to youth justice is focused on engaging with children in the justice system and guides the interventions they receive from policing and the court services. By creating opportunities to fully engage with young people, the approach is aimed at reducing the number of children in the justice system, allowing them to progress in their lives while also creating safer communities. I am proud that the Newport Police Station project was also supported as a joint initiative by Artwork Young Cultural Changemakers Program. Artwork program allows young people to use art and creativity to positively contribute toward their local community. The redesign was completed after a series of workshops where children and local artist Laura Hathaway co-created a calming and positive environment in which children could engage with police. Similar initiatives have been undertaken in spaces at Isle of Wight Youth Court. Engaging positively with young people in the justice system is an important way of creating positive behavior change in our communities. If a young person commits an offense for the first time, we can consider the use of community resolutions. This allows us to tackle disruptive or antisocial behavior without disproportionately criminalizing young people who may not have an offending history or have had prior contact with the police. This approach can significantly reduce an individual's risk of reoffending as well. We work closely with the Isle of Wight Council, the Youth Justice Service, Children's Services, and youth community groups to create a support network that can work with young people who are struggling or whose behavior is impacting our local communities on the island. More information on the support offered by the Youth Justice Service for the Isle of Wight can be found on the website of the isleofwight.gov.uk.
And now for letters. Ireland Works Pretty Well by Mark Frost from Ventnor. I have read several letters from people campaigning for better access to the mainland. I fully appreciate why people who have to work on the mainland want this. However, a road link to the mainland would spoil the unique nature of the island. At the moment, the island seems to work pretty well. You can get around without too much problem, and island roads, despite many complaints, do manage to keep the roads in a decent condition. If you have not been to the mainland recently, you should. In comparison, the roads are excellent. There is a real community feel wherever you go. It's just a fantastic place to live. House prices are also reasonable. Now put in place a bridge or tunnel. The island becomes more accessible and basically the prettiest part of Hampshire. More people come to live and visit the island. The roads become shocking because island roads can't keep up with the extra maintenance needed due to more traffic. Congestion becomes a real problem. Access to GP and dental services becomes even harder. House prices become unaffordable. But worst of all, in a short number of years, the sense of being part of a special island community disappears. We become a commuter hub for Portsmouth and Southampton. What a shame that would be.
Dear Uncle has my respect. A letter from Anne Grant of Fareham. In recent weeks, the County Press Days Gone By column has mentioned the 1951 polio outbreak. Someone who suffered badly from the infection was my uncle. He was about 14 years old and living in Devon with his parents. My mother, here on the Isle of Wight, awaited news by letter about her brother's health after he became so ill in hospital that he was put into the frightening-looking iron lung. He was lucky to survive, but suffered permanent muscle impairment to his left side. He walked with a pronounced limp and had limited use of his left arm and hand. Despite this, he got a job as a bus conductor. He was able to take bus fare cash and issued tickets using his good right hand, a job he kept all his working life. Nobody considered him to be disabled. He lived independently and did not receive disability benefit. He lived off his wages and got on with life without resorting to the state. In the year that he contracted the illnesses, there was no immunization available against polio. Several years later, the NHS developed a jab for young children. I have a childhood memory of receiving a preventative dose, much to my parents' relief. Having seen how polio had affected her brother, my mother naturally feared the same might happen to her children. Looking back now, my late uncle has my respect for the way he coped with the life that fate had dealt him. He never complained about it. And when he moved from Devon to Portsmouth to work on the South Down buses, he made many a weekend visit to see his Isle of Wight family. I recall his cheerful manner. Count your blessings. He obviously did.
Check Your Lines by Sue Birch, who is chair of Brading Residents Association. My own personal landline has been down for well over a week now. To those who ring, they get the ringing tone and think it's working, but it does not ring internally. My personal phone has no dial tone either. Update from my provider. Line is impacting with major service outage issue, and that's why this fault is associated with an incident currently affecting 772 services. Team already working on this and provided targeted fixed date, which appears to be April the 9th. It may be wise for those with emergency pendants, etc., if not already done so, to get them checked out to ensure they are working correctly. I think this is only the Brading area, but it might be wider. Troubling economics. Mark Schroeder, Cows. Most people discover how their library works when something stops working. I discovered that ours is quietly paying around £60 for an audio book licence, then paying again once it has been borrowed, roughly 26 times. I moved to the Isle of Wight 2 years ago from Hampshire, where I had been a regular user of the Hants Library digital lending box. BorrowBox is genuinely excellent. It is free at the point of use, works on your phone, and gives you access to ebooks, magazines and audiobooks without leaving the house. I would encourage anyone who has not tried it to do so, but behind the scenes the economics are troubling. Unlike a physical book, which a library buys once and lends until it falls apart, digital titles operate under commercial licences that expire after a set number of loans or a fixed period. Popular audiobooks then have to be repurchased repeatedly at prices far above what you or I would pay. It is a system designed by commercial publishers and intermediaries, not librarians, and councils with smaller budgets tend to feel the effects most sharply. What I would like to know is how many residents are aware that the digital collection they rely on is under this kind of financial pressure, and whether our council is making full use of national advocacy organisations like Libraries Connected, which campaigns for fairer licensing terms on behalf of UK libraries. If this concerns you, a brief word to your local councillor costs nothing and might just help. Goodbye from Carolyn.
And goodbye from Gerard. The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
Hello. Now, anyone who thinks that there's a stereotypical blind or partially sighted person, try this. A writer, one of whose key characters is a blind boy witch, an 11-year-old who's already got a regular spot on his local radio station and talking newspaper.
At the end of the game, Bournemouth went and scored another goal. A typical bad day for a Wolves supporter, eh? But I'd like to say something really important. For next time, come on me babbies!
He's a bit of a football supporter, is Fraser. And we have a long-distance runner who's harnessing the latest technology to run in this week's Brighton Marathon.
Hey Meta, call Be My Eyes.
Be My Eyes is now using your glasses camera.
Hello.
You okay?
I'm good. My name is Clark Reynolds. I'm from Portsmouth. I just wanted to ask if you got a spare 5 minutes to come by training with me this morning. All you got to say if there's a parked car, a bin.
Okay, wonderful. Do you want me to tell you which side of the road and things like that?
Yeah, so if you just say to me...
So, Clark Reynolds, what is exactly happening there? Explain it to us.
Yeah, so the idea, I came up with this idea around about 10 months ago when the Meta glasses and Be My Eyes collaborated together. And I was like, oh, what could I do to push the boundaries? Because you already know me anyway, you know, as Mr. Doc, the leading braille artist in the world. And I was like, right, let's run another marathon. So 10 months later, here we are. And like I said, I say those magic words, hey Meta, call Be My Eyes, and I get a complete stranger from around the world to support me on my training runs. And I've had 100 volunteers that have helped Mr. Dot on his journey so far.
Right. And so you're using the specs and they get a kind of image of where you are through those.
So they see what I could see if I could physically see out my eyes. The cameras are that good that they get a clear image of what's in front of me. And we just have a conversation. You know, we talked about obviously going left and right for bins and people. But my training runs are so quiet. I mean, that 90% of the time we just chat about what's the weather like, where you're from. And I've had the most amazing conversations. So I'll tell you one. So a woman picked up, she had a Scottish accent. I knew she was from Scotland, from the accent. And I asked her, oh, whereabouts she from? And she goes, oh, I'm from Glasgow. And I said, oh, that's lovely. What's the weather like? She goes, well, I'm not in Glasgow at the moment. I'm in Thailand on holiday. And that really sums up the beauty of that app. And before you know it, I've done 3 miles.
Now, I think during the marathon itself, you're going to have a guide with you as well, but you're not being tethered to them, which is the method that most blind people use. So why not? Why do you want to do it this way?
I did the London Marathon 3 years ago for the charity that I'm ambassador for, Fight for Sight, whom I'm running the Brighton Marathon for as well. And I found it so difficult to train with someone because we couldn't train every day. And I trained, but I couldn't train properly. And I said, never again. After that, I said, never again. So this time round, I've had the flexibility of building up the stamina, not worrying about their stride pattern, my stride pattern. It's all down to me, you know. And like I said, they're not there to guide me. They're there to support me just in case the technology fails. You know, I'm not here to replace guide runners. I'm just here to push the boundaries of the app.
Right. Your Be My Eyes remote guides, how do you select them? I mean, a marathon takes at least 3 hours, for many a lot longer. So how will the changeovers between volunteer guides work? Because presumably you don't have one volunteer guide for the whole race, do you?
No. So when you use the app, normally you get a complete random stranger. But Be My Eyes worked behind the scenes to create this group of people. I have 4 pairs of glasses, so I do pit stops. They last about 30 to 40 minutes. And then after that, I'll again say those magic words. And again, they know who they are. Fight for Sight know who they are. But I have no idea. I'm literally kept in the dark again, which is, I love that idea. So I'm going to have conversations with new people that I don't know about. And we're just going to have a great time.
And just briefly, what else are you using the specs for in your day-to-day life?
Well, the day-to-day life, it's a game changer for the sight loss community. It's affordable tech. You know how expensive it is for technology for the blind community. But these glasses are a game changer. I go into galleries and I get Dame Judi Dench, who's my voice in my glasses, to describe the art to me. And it's beautiful. And, I use it for the other day, just what's the day look like? It just gives me a picture in my mind. I just ask it, look, and it describes the scene to me, but it's not patronising. It's beautiful. Words are beautiful.
Right. We'll come back to you, Clark. I should mention there's still a bit of controversy circulating relating to privacy and how people's data is processed as far as the specs are concerned. And we're going to return to this issue in a forthcoming programme. I want to bring in our writer, Jixie Dye, already been on the programme once before, because you don't need to bother, Jixie, do you, with all this clever tech in your latest book, The Welsh Witch and the Queen's Curse, because it's featuring witches who can do all sorts of things without explaining how they do them. In this, you make people invisible, you swan off to any part of the world on strange vehicles. It's very convenient for a writer, isn't it?
Fantasy opens up so many avenues. You can just really do anything you want to do with it, and that's the freedom of that is what I love. So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of crazy vehicles and kids who can bring anything to life if they want to.
They can make a child stick to a blackboard if they don't like them very much, can't they?
Yeah,
you did that
exactly.
in your last book, I seem to remember.
Yep.
It's cheating, isn't it, though, Jixie? Isn't it cheating a bit as a plot device?
Well, the thing is, obviously there's constraints. It has to feel realistic. It has to feel plausible. But, as long as you do that, and kids, they don't question things the way that adults do. We super analyse things, even things like with things that are considered, kids things, adults will analyse. But, kids don't. They just take things at face value. So I don't think it's cheating. You just have to be aware that obviously it has to feel plausible. It has to feel realistic that world.
And of course, books involving magic actually become very popular again amongst adults, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. That is true. That is true.
Now, I mentioned your blind boy witch, Louis, named after Louis Braille.
Yes.
Now, he comes in very handy in this latest book when they want to kill a dragon who's guarding an emerald, which is the only way of restoring the health and powers of one of the witch's mothers. I should have told you it's pretty complicated. just explain what is happening there and perhaps read us a bit of our blind witch's big moment in the book.
Yeah, okay, here you go. Louis came clattering down the stairs, this time holding a mountain of Braille books, which he placed on the kitchen countertop. There's a chapter on sleeping potions in this one, Louis said, selecting a book from the pile entitled Potions for Everyday Life. The others watched Louis scan the pages, but as they were in Braille, they could offer little support with this task. There's one here, Louis said, running his finger down the page. We have almost all the ingredients, but we don't have butterfly wings. Where can we get some? Jamie asked. There's a butterfly world in Llandudno, Louis said. We could create a portal and get us there in no time.
Is there really a butterfly world in London?
There is. I went there with my grandparents when I was very small, and I just remember there was butterflies everywhere, and one landed on my shoulder. And obviously, to me, not being able to see very well, it just looked like a, sort of fluttery blobs.
Yeah.
But I knew what they were, and I was just entranced because anytime I see an animal in like real life that's quite close up, not on a screen or whatever, I'm entranced by it, and I just have to stop and stare. So it was such a magical moment for me. So I was so glad to bring it into my book.
And bringing things into your book is very much the style, because you very quietly bring Braille in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the serious points you're making is that the blind boy Louis isn't the hero, which might be the temptation, but he just pops up occasionally to give a bit of help. Just one of the gang, really.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Louis' strength is that he's very clever and he's very book smart. So, he doesn't do what Tesney and Jamie do, where they run around and they cause chaos. But he, without his help, they kind of would be lost in many ways.
Right. Well, it's the perfect time to introduce 11-year-old Fraser Tibbets, who's already in danger of becoming rather famous, whether he wants to or not. He's the 2026 winner of one of the Make a Difference award that local radio stations give, and all the things which have recently happened to you, Fraser, have all stemmed from your love of football and your love of Wolverhampton Wanderers. Tell me about that and how it all started.
Yeah, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I started becoming a Wolves fan. Well, I was a Wolves fan since I popped out my mum's stomach.
That's quite a while ago now. And
Yeah.
I mean, you have been their mascot, and that means going out with the team before they kick off. In fact, I think you've introduced the team, haven't you?
Number 5.
Mario Lamina!
Number 8, and our captain,
Ruben Neves!
number 11, Peter.
So you must have become a fairly familiar figure now at Molineux, haven't you, the Wolves ground?
Yes, yeah.
And I should just make the point, you go with your granddad, don't you, regularly?
Yeah, regularly. I go half of the home games. I share a ticket with Pete, but he swears a lot, so we call him Sweary Pete.
How easy is it for you to follow the games? Just going back to when you first went with your granddad, after all, you could listen to the game at home and end up knowing just as much, couldn't you?
Yeah, but I just love the feeling of it live. The atmosphere before we get a goal and the crowd are going, oh, when we're about to get a goal, it's electric. It's amazing. I sometimes think they're gonna fall off their heads sometimes.
Yeah. Now, as I say, this has all grown, hasn't it? Because you now having your own slot on your local radio station.
Yeah. Because I won the Make a Difference Awards for WM, and they said, do you want to be on our show, the Football Phone-In? And do you know what he calls it, my slot? Daz Hale calls it Fraser's Friday Football Forecast.
Middlesbrough against Birmingham City, Fraser.
Right, Birmingham City, 1-0.
1-0. Albion against Oxford.
Albion are going to win 1-0 again.
1-0.
You actually forecast the results of all the games involving West Midland teams, don't you?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
How accurate are you, Fraser?
Oh my God, now that's a question.
Fraser, can I ask? I'm a huge football fan.
Clark, yeah.
Do you predict Villa loses all the time?
No, not all the time. Sometimes they win. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like Villa 2-0. Sometimes I'm like someone else 2-0. I'm not sure. Or 1-0. Yeah.
Do you ever predict that the West Midland teams will lose, Fraser?
Yeah, sometimes. I predicted Wolves would lose once. Well, twice now.
Well, that's not difficult, is it? They're bottom of the Premiership, aren't they? The Premier League.
True. No, it's out there. That's a fact.
There is one other thing, Fraser. I think on WM, you regularly tell a joke, don't you?
Oh gosh,
There's a joke slot. You know where we're going with this, don't you?
I'm fired up.
All right, come on then.
I'm really sad because my pet mouse Elvis died last night.
Oh.
He was caught in a trap.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
That's awful.
That is, but we quite liked it, nonetheless. Clark, although only, I think you've lost your sight over a gradual period, you love Braille, don't you, to the extent of writing a book, Mr. Dot and his magical white cane adventures. So what's the fascination for you of Braille?
The Braille is because being a creative, being an artist for 25 years, and when I discovered Braille 8 years ago, I thought, oh, why can't this be an art form? And it's just because it's the patterns, you know, and my brain is geared to patterns. And I learned it in 3 weeks just because I saw it as a pattern, not as a letter. And as Mr. Dot, I go up and down the country and I teach Braille to every child in school. Over 30,000 kids in the past 4 years, and they're fascinated with it. And it's a way to break down the stigma attached to sight loss, because kids, like you said, Jix just said about kids, that the imagination, and so they have no filter as well. So they ask questions that adults don't ask about sight loss. And it's that generation that's going to change how we perceive what sight loss is in today's society.
And Jixie, you also feature, as we've said, Louis, using Braille in your book to make his potions. I mean, you chose the name Louis just because of Louis Braille, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to show that, you know, blind kids can read books and they can, you know, be book smart. You know, it doesn't stop them from doing that.
Now, this is all leading up to something, because Fraser, your gran, tells me that you're not a fan of Braille.
Not really.
Why not?
It's just like boring reading dots, to be honest.
Oh, Fraser, don't. That's hit me in the heart, that has. Oh.
Sorry.
So tell me then, Fraser, how do you enjoy books? I mean, how would you read Clark's or Jixie's books? If you wanted to read them, what would you do?
I would probably have them on CD or audio book or something. Or have them read to me, that's it.
I'll give you my first page of my book, Fraser. Mr. Dot is my name. I have a white cane. It's magic and helps me to see. I tap through the day to find my own way, which means that I can be free.
Oh, I like that. That's nice. It rhymes. It's great.
It's all rhymes, yeah, it all rhymes. And my book is Braille and Latin together. At first, it's kind of UK, a Braille book for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're blind or not.
I'm just thinking, Fraser, if you've done all this stuff, you've got a regular spot on WM. If you're going to be a radio presenter, I'm reading Braille at the moment. You might find it quite useful, you know.
Yeah, it can, kind.
We're trying to sell it to you see.
I can understand how you'd think it's not very cool to read Braille when your friends are, out there reading print books or whatever. I can understand that, but the thing is, and maybe as you get older you'll feel that it's good to be independent and rather have books being read to you by people. You can read them yourself, and you know what I always found when I was reading Braille is you can read in the dark.
You're so right, Jixie. I mean, I used to read half the night, and when the other kids, even if they were got the light on, meant the parents could see the torch light coming under the bedroom door, they knew you were still up reading. I could just read any time I wanted to, and I still do read at night.
Sometimes I have these feely books. It's a wild animal one, yeah, and I've got another science one that's got a lot of things in actually.
Fraser, I'm an artist, and I've got something really exciting next year. You must come to Portsmouth and visit it. I've got Arts Council funding to create a Mr. Dot shop, so a shop like a play shop with no Latin. Everything will be Braille, to the brands, to the money, even the signage. There will be no Latin whatsoever. So do come to Portsmouth and visit Mr. Dot shop next February.
Okay, that sounds good.
Just one thing, Fraser, and this brings us back to our very first item. Have you seen, Fraser, or felt or touched the Meta Ray-Bans yet?
Yeah, I have actually. I've worn them and I've spoke to them, and I love them because I could have a page in front of me. Oh, I could read these guys' books actually because I could just tell Meta to read it.
Well, that could work. Anyway, Clark, best of luck with your marathon.
Thank
Jixie,
you.
best of luck with your book sales.
Thank you.
And Fraser, best of luck for Wolves in the Championship next season, where they will undoubtedly be.
I'm sure the babbies will be up a bit more later.
Well, we have to stop there. Regretfully, there's so much more we'd still like to get in, but I'm sure it won't be the last you hear from these three. Just to remind our listeners, you can join in the conversation by emailing us intouch@bbc.co.uk or leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338. So from me, Peter Wight, Clark, Jixie, Fraser and producer Beth Hellings, goodbye.
Bye.
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 Scaffolding and skips news for a week commencing the 6th of April. Newport area, 8 Albert Street. Litchfield House, Union Street. Halifax, 114 to 116 High Street and St James Street.
Ryde area, 141 High Street, 10 and 11 High Street, 77 George Street, Morrison's Daily, Union Street. Ryde Skips area, 58 West Street.
Cowes and East Cowes area, number 1 and July Cottage, Bars Hill.
Ventnor area, Ventnor Youth Centre, Victoria Street.
Sundown area, 52 Fitzroy Street, Alveston Farmhouse, Main Road, Alveston. Napoleon Landing, Esplanade, 1 Melville Street. Sundown area skips, 29 Alfred Road, Lake.